Hi. In the last video in this series, we explored the psychology of starting an exercise regimen, especially for the very first time. In this video, I'd like to explore what it takes to maintain a regimen over the long haul. This is an important question, especially because the real benefits of exercise don't accrue from doing it only a few dozen times or so and then quitting. Rather, the benefits emerge mostly over many months and probably years of sustained, methodical, focused effort. Okay, so over the 40 years that I've been exercising, I'd personally say that the most important element of maintaining an exercise regimen has to do with rhythm. In other words, establishing a regular schedule so that exercise becomes just another predictable part of life. Something like showering or brushing our teeth. This is important because when exercise becomes rhythmic in our lives, it no longer seems like a huge Herculean effort to get through it. Sure, some workouts are inevitably harder and some aren't. But when they're part of an established rhythm in our lives, it's a lot easier to muster the motivation to work out, irrespective of whether it's hard or easy on any particular day. Of course, sometimes things get crazy in our lives, and so it's just a matter of time until our established rhythm is disrupted. And if we really want to be fit, we need to be ready for that. Personally, I find that the biggest challenge to my exercise rhythm happens when I get sick, and I need to miss a couple of workouts in a row. When that happens, I find that the best strategy is to wait until about one day after I feel completely well, and then start back at about 2/3 of my normal level, ramping back up over the next few workouts. So I'd say that the first secret to maintaining an exercise regimen has to do with establishing a rhythm and then developing effective strategies for re-establishing that rhythm when it gets disrupted. However, sometimes the challenge has less to do with external factors and more to do with our own psychological relation to working out. In this domain, I'd say that there are two primary psychological challenges: discouragement and boredom. Let's look at these one at a time. For the most part, discouragement happens when we aren't seeing the results we want and we feel like we're stuck and not improving. For instance, maybe we can run several miles at a certain pace, but we can't seem to get any faster than that. Or maybe we want to lose a certain amount of weight, but we seem to be perpetually stuck at a level 10 or 15 pounds above that. You probably are getting the idea. Anyhow, the first step in dealing with discouragement is to recognize and accept the fact that plateaus are a very common reality in the domain of exercise. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're doing anything wrong, and it's no reason to give up. It's just part of the deal. Of course, if our performance is actually getting worse over time, we might consider whether we're doing something fundamentally wrong, like overtraining or not eating properly, for instance. But when it's just a matter of not getting better fast enough, well, consider the alternative. If we were to use our discouragement as an excuse to give up exercising, would that get us closer to where we really want to be in life? Probably not. Rather than struggling with the sensation of not being as fast or as strong or as lean as we want to be, we'd then be struggling with the sensation of being completely out of shape. And the fact is that a partial victory is always better than no victory at all. Anyhow, one strategy for dealing with discouragement is to untether our motivation for exercising from the desperate need for attainment. My wife and I have a way of talking about this, especially when one of us is feeling a little bit discouraged. We tell each other, hey, if you're out here trying, you're already a winner. In other words, there's something already heroic about refusing to settle for less than our deepest and best destiny in this life, irrespective of whatever attainments happen to come our way. There's something already heroic about feeling the sting of disappointment like a hard slap in the face, and still not giving in or giving up, still striving, still being in the game despite all of our convincing reasons not to be, even in the raging storm of our dismay and disappointment and discouragement. even then, actually, especially then. In the last video in this series, I talked about how the real reason to start an exercise regimen is to become a particular kind of person. The kind who refuses to be ruled by excuses and who is able to assume the deepest possible relation to human freedom and human responsibility. And here again, that same motif emerges, this time several months or several years down the long road of physical fitness. But I'd also like to share with you another strategy for dealing with the pain of discouragement, one that I learned from my many years as a runner. Since the sport of running involves a fair amount of physical pain, especially when we're running hard for time, there often comes a point where it's easy to think, I just can't do it. I can't finish, and I think I'm going to have to stop right now. Whenever I would experience that sensation during my years as a runner, I would say to myself, this is me wanting to quit. This is me thinking I can't finish. Okay. Now, let's see if I can at least make it to that tree up there. And then I'd reach the tree and say, this is me still wanting to quit. But let's see if I can at least make it to that rock up there, etc., etc. And most of the time, I'd end up finishing the entire run that way. Basically, one little psychological piece at a time. But the main point is that when we become reflectively and mindfully aware of what we're experiencing, it has a way of making it easier for us to get through whatever hardship the experience involves. This was a crucial insight that became even deeper for me when I began to meditate regularly. And indeed, I found through the years that there's a lot of overlap between maintaining a workout regimen and the practice of meditation. In both cases, the trick is to realize that discouragement is actually part of the journey, not something antithetical to it. Realizing that makes it a lot easier to take it in stride rather than to use it as a justification for quitting. And this brings us to the second big challenge, both in exercise and in meditation. The challenge of boredom. And here again, some of the same basic logic applies. When we realize that boredom is just another part of the challenge of being fit rather than a reason to stop, well, it gets a lot easier to deal with. Personally, I suspect that most of us begin exercising with a big burst of excitement and enthusiasm. You can easily see this at the track or in the gym when beginners come in, especially right after New Year's Day, which isn't too far off, by the way. And then, almost like clockwork, you'll see a big drop-off about 2 or 3 weeks after that. So, what happened to all of that great enthusiasm? Well, probably part of it goes away when we have to confront the hard reality of exercise, namely the fact that it's physically demanding. But probably another big part of it has to do with the onset of boredom. Of course, the usual prescription for that is to vary our exercise routine over time, which definitely helps. But the problem with relying on that strategy too much is that it's still pretty easy to become bored with exercising in general, quite apart from the particulars of our regimens. And here again, insights that derive from meditative practice can be helpful. The fact is that very few things in life are as boring as meditation can be. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Oh, almost slipped into a 90s song there. That's pretty much all that's happening. However, the deeper lesson in meditation has to do with becoming mindfully aware of whatever we're experiencing and then learning to inhabit the present moment more fully. Basically, it means getting into the whole spirit of repetition, as the famous Zen master Shunryu Suzuki puts it, which can then become a vehicle for deepening our conscious awareness and our contact with reality. And along the way, it's entirely possible to learn that there's nothing about doing something repetitive, as exercise so often is, that necessitates our feeling bored by it. That's because the larger reality is that every moment of our lives offers us an infinite horizon of subtle sensations and possible miracles, even if we're just breathing, or just running another mile, or just doing 10 more reps of bench presses. The trick, of course, is to learn to be fully present to reality and to be entirely satisfied with that, rather than hoping, as we so often do, that something entertaining or exciting will happen soon. After all, when you think about it, being human is already about being swept up into the exciting adventure of existence itself, already about participating in the exhilaration of universal transcendence. Basically, how the universe is struggling to give birth to something beyond itself. And if that's true in the most general way, then it's even more obviously true in the domain of exercise, where the sensation of feeling our bodies heaving and sweating, secretly raging against the inevitable dying of the light, our breath ragged and racing in the mad delirious dance of straining sinews and trembling flesh, that sensation can call to us like a voice echoing from the mists of our distant primeval past. A strange, lilting voice, barely recognizable at first. A voice both playful and savage at the same time, beckoning us to take endless delight in the ecstasy of animal motility. It's really just a matter of opening ourselves to the wide sky of our deeper possibilities and perceptions in this life, as well as giving up the nasty habit of being bored all the damn time, which is to say, the habit of boring ourselves all the damn time. In other words, it's about summoning the courage to allow ourselves to become enchanted by what's real in the present moment. Okay, at this point I'd like to move toward ending this video by talking a bit about the psychology of maintaining an exercise regimen during the latter half of life. Let's say after about the age of 45 or so. I'm 58 right now, so that's definitely where I am. Anyhow, the first challenge I've discovered as I head toward retirement age has to do with acknowledging the fact that all of my glory days are behind me. The simple reality is that I'll never be as strong or as fast as I was in my 20s and 30s, and that all my personal records are many years in the past. So, unless we're very new to exercising, the reason to continue doing it in the latter half of life can't be as easy as training to be stronger and faster than we've ever been. Basically, we need to find deeper meanings than that if we're going to keep pursuing physical fitness. Personally, part of my own set of deeper meanings has to do with what I was talking about a minute ago. The experience of simply taking delight in the body and the body's capabilities, even if they're less than they've been in the past. In other words, it's about letting go of the need to accomplish and getting into the simple desire to experience pleasure in the physical side of existence. However, for me, another motivation is just to look good for my wife. Yeah, I'm getting old, but that doesn't mean that I have to let myself go. And isn't it strange when you think about it that so many of us do just that when we finally get into a committed love relationship? See, I think it should work the other way around. I think that when we finally find our soulmates, we would naturally want to get in even better shape for them. After all, why wouldn't we want to bless them with the daily gift of our own fit bodies? And so, a big part of my motivation for fitness at age 58 has to do with doing exactly that for my own wife and soulmate. But for me, perhaps an even bigger motivation has to do with the fact that life just plain feels better when we're in shape. Personally, I'm not so much interested in living longer. Yeah, that would be a nice side benefit. But as a student of existentialism and Buddhism, I harbor few illusions about whether decrepitude and death will eventually take me. And perhaps much sooner than I imagine. I get that. But what I am interested in is enhancing the quality of my life before that happens. And I find that that's much easier when my body is in good physical condition. That doesn't necessarily mean a spectacular condition, and certainly not to the point of narcissistic overkill, especially since at my age that would take way too much time and effort. And anyhow, I have plenty of other things I want to do with my life, such as, well, making these videos for you. But still, I find that investing around an hour a day in basic fitness very quickly enhances all of life's other dimensions. The emotional dimension, the intellectual dimension, and even the spiritual and social dimensions. All in all, life's just plain better when we take care of our bodies. Surprise! I know, right? So, all things considered, I find that it's best not to think of exercise as merely a hobby or even an activity. It's much better to think of it as a way of life, and a way of life that has a way of deepening life. And perhaps more than anything else, that particular meaning, which is nothing less than the ongoing attempt to seek out the greater depth of being human, is what has sustained my own exercise regimen over the last 40 years. Okay, as always, thanks for watching. Take care of your soul. Peace out. Hi. For this last little part of the video, we've moved down into the basement because I want to do part 2 of what I'm calling an experiment in Dad-bod. The reason why I'm doing this is because, like I said in the last video, the internet is full of liars and exaggerators, so I want to give you some kind of visual indicator of whether you should listen to what I'm saying in these videos, whether I'm living it out in my own life. So, in the last video, we asked the question, how many pull-ups in a row can a 58-year-old college professor do? And we discovered the answer. The answer was 18. In today's episode, we're going to ask the question, how many push-ups in a row can a 58-year-old college professor do? So if you want to put a guess in the comments section, I welcome you to do that. I'm going to do these push-ups fast because otherwise I think it would get pretty tedious to watch them. What else? If you want to just see the final result, look at the following time indicator. If you just want to skip ahead, that's fine. So here we go. Once again, the question, how many push-ups in a row can a 58-year-old college professor do? Ten. 20. 30. 40. 50. Oh my God. That last one almost killed me. Anyhow, there's your answer. How many push-ups in a row can a 58-year-old college professor do? The answer is 55. Once again, take care of your soul. Have a great day. Peace out.